What is going on, everybody? I hope you're excited. We've got an excellent show tonight. I just realized I forgot 2 videos that we're going to play, but that's okay. We'll find them. Not a big deal. Guys, I hope you're excited. As you're trickling on here, please make sure you hit that like, subscribe, notification bell. Every time you hit that like button, we get pushed further in the algorithm. As you know, our goal on this stream is we want to go big or go home. So for every like that you put in, guys, we get further in the algorithm. Welcome in, Todd. Welcome in. Welcome back. Appreciate you coming in here. We've got a lot to cover, actually a lot, but not a lot at the same time. Today was actually very quiet. It was very frustrating. The news that we had today, I struggled up until the very end at like 5 o'clock to post a video, which, you know what, at the end of the day, I can't really complain too much. We'll get to why it was kind of quiet. Turns out Trump decided he wanted to take a little bit of a vacation. So that happened. But yeah, so that's going on. Let me go ahead and mute my Discord. There we go. All right. So, guys, we're going to jump straight into the news. Like I said, as you guys come in here, please make sure you hit that like, subscribe, notification bell. It would be greatly appreciated. All right. Let's jump on in here now. Let's go ahead and pull up our news. Let's go ahead and pull that up real quick. Solo web source. And, of course, I forgot to prep the news source once again. I'm not doing too good on this. All right. Let's go to Scott Jennings. There's that for the horizontal, and then we got to do this for the shorts. Scott Jennings. There we go. All right. Let's just jump straight into it. So when you guys come in here, you'll see it. You'll see somebody who's kind of going crazy, and you'll understand as you're swiping through all of these shorts live streams that you decided to fall in on my live stream. By the way, if you're watching this on X or Twitch, hey guys, do me a huge solid. Follow me. Like this on Twitter, like this stream, okay, if you can, on Twitch, okay? Do me a huge solid, it mean the more to me. All right, let's jump straight into the news, guys. We've got quite a bit to cover. So, first up, we have the tragic incident that took place, I believe it was Wednesday, and we're going to talk about Republicans' prayers. You see, Donald Trump has built his brand around Christianity. This is why it's very important to understand this is about Christian nationalism. This is exactly what is happening in this country right now. They're trying to push this where we had the Trump Bible. We had where Oklahoma was trying to put Bibles in schools. We had all of this going on. Okay. We also saw where Texas, for example, put the 10 Commandments into class. But you see, if you're a true Christian or someone who has read the Bible and understand Jesus' teachings, you would understand Jesus was against very flashy Christianity, right? He talked about the Sadducees and the Pharisees that would get up on a platform and preach loudly. And he said, those men have already received their reward. Now, I don't mean to turn this into a Sunday sermon, but a lot of what is happening on the Republican side is, quite frankly, a lot of virtue signaling. It's preying upon their religious base. So this is similar to what we're seeing, but they've now taken the thoughts and prayers and cranked it up to 100. They're now playing on thoughts and prayers and legitimately thinking that prayers will solve our issues. Listen, I'm all for praying. We should absolutely put these families in our prayers. Sure. But prayers do not solve this. And when Republicans have a trifecta in Congress and the presidency, they can do a hell of a lot more than just praying. Don't let that get lost in the weeds. They can say thoughts and prayers. If a Democrat were in office, I understand that, where they have nothing they can do, but they can do anything they want to do if they so will it. Don't let that get lost in translation. They have a trifecta. Congress has already said they will do whatever Donald Trump asks them to do. We've seen state legislatures. By the way, today, Texas finalized their map. States are willing. So again, when we hear the thoughts and prayers, spare me the thoughts and prayers and show me your action. Your actions speak louder than words. So let's get into stories now that I'm off of my high horse here. So Scott Jennings said, it's not just wrong, but cruel to tell people of faith that their prayers ring hollow amid a tragedy like this. There are parents in Minneapolis tonight who are likely praying harder for comfort than they've ever prayed in their lives. They're never going to be the same. You know what I would do as a parent? I don't want to hear my representative say, hey, sir, I understand that your child was affected by this, but don't worry, we're going to pray for you really hard. That's not what I want to hear. What I want to hear is that you're going to take action to prevent another tragedy like this from happening. So yes, it does ring hollow. We then see Sean Hannity saying these are preventable. The first thing you should do, every school in the country should have a metal detector. You have to control the entry of kids and the perimeter around every school. The left's rush race to blame guns for every tragedy is sad and pathetic. What's sad and pathetic is inaction. What's sad and pathetic is trying to make our schools look like a penitentiary. I want to be very clear here. I am not someone who is going to sit here and advocate for completely abolishing firearms, but let's be very clear. What we need to do is we need mental health screenings. We need red flag laws. We need waiting periods. If there are any kind of attachments that we deem that would increase safety, sure, ban those attachments then. What we also need to have is if there's any loopholes, repeal those loopholes. What we need is we need stronger enforcement here. I understand that a lot of my policy positions would not stop them all, but there's no amount of legislation that you will propose that will stop it. And what Republicans are advocating for is they're advocating for nothing they are advocating for. So which policy position is likely to help reduce it? Probably the one that is being advocated for something to be done other than thoughts and prayers. We then see Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey just calling for a statewide and federal ban on assault weapons. Who's with him? I'm going to give you my liberal take on this, okay? I've already said my policy position is that we should do more to stop these. We should try to build up the security in our schools, granted, right? For example, we saw that in Uvalde, one of the biggest issues there was that they did not have mesh wiring in their windows. And so meanwhile, the perpetrator was able to get through by simply, again, shooting out those particular windows. Let's put windows that are much stronger. For example, we saw in this incident, by the way, stained glass windows. The perpetrator did not even make entry into the church. Okay? And here it is, Homeland Security saying, pray without ceasing. Again, they are now making a mockery at this point, saying, just pray. Just pray, guys. It'll all resolve itself if you just simply pray. No, legislative action is what solves issues. Community helps solve issues. And you can see here, Mike Johnson saying at the end of the day, the problem is not guns. The problem is the human heart. It's mental health. Mike Johnson. Well, then why don't you call Congress back into session instead of running like a coward away from the Epstein files? Keep in mind, Mike Johnson called Congress, told Congress, we're going to leave early. We're going to recess early because I don't want this to be released. How about you call Congress back? How about you actually do legislative actions? But Mike Johnson won't do that. We then see where Secretary Kristi Noem is awarding over $110 million to more than 600 quote unquote faith-based organizations and nonprofits across the country. Here's the thing about this. Who's going to receive this funding? We already know they have instituted things like the Muslim travel ban, for example. So will this go to Buddhist temples? Will this go to synagogues? Will this go to Muslim worship centers? Will they go to all these different things? Sorry, I'm absolutely blanking on that area. Will it go to these areas That's the question you have to ask yourself. Or will this be divvied up based on what they view as worthy of these funds? That's the question you have to ask yourself, especially when it comes to government funding. We've already seen this, by the way. When we talk about, when we look at what happened with the rural health funding was going to Texas, and it was a blank check for Texas to use as they see fit. By the way, it's the same thing that we would see with the Department of Education. We talk about the Department of Education. They wanted to get rid of it and just hand down to the states a basic grant that they are able to use however they see fit. So this doesn't solve anything. And you can see here, Speaker Mike Johnson saying, Democrats mocking the power of prayer in the wake of tragedy is so disgraceful. It's hard to even summon words to describe. Millions of Americans know prayer brings strength in our darkest moments. For politicians to belittle faith to score cheap points shows just how out of touch they are. No, you're out of touch. And what Gavin Newsom said was James 2:14. What good is it, my brothers and sisters, if someone claims to have faith but has no deeds? Has no deeds. You see, Mike Johnson can absolutely call Congress back. They have a trifecta. It would be nothing for them to be able to pass any kind of legislation. Ask yourself why Republicans are not calling Congress back into session. Ask yourself that. So again, what we look at with this is that this is an absolute tragedy, what happened. Prayers, there's certainly a need for prayers. I understand that. As a Christian, I understand that the power of prayer. I understand that deeply. But Republicans here are pandering. It's the same reason that they called up a child with brain cancer to Trump's first speech to Congress. Went up there, put him up on a pedestal, and used him as a political prop. This is what Republicans do. They know that their base is radically right Christians, and so they feed that base with virtue signals. Again, I ask you, Republicans in Congress have a trifecta. There is the presidency, they have Congress, they can pass nearly anything that they'd want to do. Why are they not doing so? Ask yourself that question, and when you think about it, you'll eventually find that the answer is because they understand that, one, if they were to pass any kind of legislation, it would deeply upset their base, and they don't want to lose votes because they understand that Democrats are extremely powerful right now in terms of polling. Or two, is that they love when these tragedies happen because guess what? They then can use it as a political prop. So again, it's deeply concerning to me to see what is going on right now. Prayers are surely needed. I'm not going to disagree with that. But action is where it matters. So we need action. We need to see meaningful legislation. I'm not someone who I've already mentioned before. I know there's many on the left who want to ban guns. Let me tell you something as somebody who is a liberal. Banning guns is not the solution here, and let me explain why. One, it is deeply unpragmatic in our current legislative state. We know that Pam Bondi and Donald Trump have already proposed things like red flag laws. Now, I caution this because I know how they would frame this. They would absolutely use these red flag laws as a way to demean the LGBTQ community, especially given what has taken place already in the light of this tragedy. So the solution here, I've already proposed. We need potentially mental health checks. We could ban attachments if need be. We could talk about trying to go through and do red flag laws. I'm totally cool with that, assuming that they don't actually harm the LGBTQ community. We could talk about, for example, strengthening our schools, our churches, our stadiums, if you will. We could talk about all those things. But again, the only way those get done is, guess what? Through legislation. All right, let's address chat now that chat has been popping off. I've seen all of y'all in chat popping off. Angela said they call themselves Christians, they call themselves pro-life, but refuse to do anything about gun control. Absolutely, Angela, 110%. More laws only restrain the law-abiding. Minnesota has the most gun laws, but outlaws don't follow the law. Interesting you say that. Interesting you say that, because I would imagine if I asked you about the death penalty, for example, you would say quite the opposite. You see, Republicans love the death penalty, but because they say that it prevents crime. But then on the next breath, when it comes to 2A, they say that, guess what? Criminals don't listen to the law. So which is it? Pick your lane. Pick your consistency here. We need a ton of reforms. MAGA won't do it, and Dems can't get it done. Whispering in hands don't do a damn thing to solve our problems. Absolutely. Zippy Link, once again, coming in. Welcome back in, buddy. Hey, guys, listen, we got 222 people in here. Please hit that like, subscribe, notification bell if you have not already. Our goal today is to hit 100 likes. I think it's a fairly easy goal to do. We have 222 people. If all 222 people hit the like button, we're at 200 likes. All right, 34 felonies, not a day in jail. Yeah, that's a funny thing too, right, in Sigma? They sit there and they say that they are all for law and order, but even then Trump will go and pardon 1,600 criminals that had to do with J6. Then you see Donald Trump himself being convicted of 34 felony counts. So, yeah, you know, I think it's incredibly crazy. Alton Bryce said, nope, no more fake. Okay, well, you know, again, if you want to continue to spew hatred, that's okay. Bye. Always look for your streams, brother. Best wishes to you and your family. Thank you, Zippy Link. I appreciate it. Always look for, that was you earlier, because Republicans get money from the NRA. That's why they don't pass gun laws. A few dollars is what their souls are worth. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Carol. That's a big thing, too, is the NRA lobby, right? The NRA lobby is very, very, very strong. Let's see. What else do we have here? Liberals are clueless. Well, you messed up the word there, but good try, SpaghettiOs. All right, guys. So let's go on to the next topic. I appreciate every single one of you guys in here that have come in here, especially you, Zippy Lake. I know you've been here in every single stream. I really, really appreciate it. All right. So let's go to the next story here. Let's talk about immigration. Immigration, okay? It's another hot topic. So, Tom Homan on Alligator Alcatraz. To catch everybody up here, Alligator Alcatraz is on the verge of being shut down. It sounds like from all accounts, they are going to be shutting it down here in the next coming weeks. Tom Homan, though, trying to spew as much hatred as he possibly can, said, I walked through the detention where the aliens were housed. Notice how he said the aliens, because he likes to use that word. It makes him excited. Clean, well kept. I went to the medical facility. They had no serious medical issues. I went to the cafeteria and looked at the food. They're feeding these people all the waste taken off every day. And as Ron Smith says, nobody is buying this, because that's the biggest issue when it comes to Alligator Alcatraz right now, is that the conditions there are extremely deplorable. There's been allegations that riots are breaking out because of this. And we can see that ABC News is reporting that since 100 immigration judges left the DOJ, is now hiring judges with no experience in immigration law. Get ready for a bunch of Proud Boys and white. And this is something to keep in mind, too. We've seen this with ICE, by the way, when they have lowered. Hold on one second. Got some stuff going on in the background. Okay. So we'll pick up here. So the issue we're having right now is that we're seeing this with ICE, for example, where ICE is going in and they are starting to bring in people of all sorts of backgrounds. They have lowered their age limits. They have brought on signing bonuses. And I am deeply concerned about the background checks that they are very likely doing and whether or not these people have any kind of law enforcement background. And we're seeing now with these immigration judges that they are now going to probably fill. We know that when Trump removes certain people from office, he replaces them with loyalists. And I would expect the same is probably going to be done here. We can also see Homan on Abrego Garcia saying on August 28th, this was just yesterday, that he is going to be deported because, again, to catch you up on Abrego Garcia's case, he was scheduled to be deported back to Uganda. And the judge said, we need to wait until an October hearing. But Homan responded saying he's going to be deported. He's a danger to the community. He's a terrible person. He doesn't deserve to walk the streets of this great nation. He's a gang member, terrorist, wife beater, human trafficker, and all of this stuff, and saying he needs to go home. See, first of all, what I believe should happen right now is that Abrego Garcia probably has a very good, and this is not legal advice, and I would not propose this, but I would not say that this is any kind of legal. But what I would say is that Abrego Garcia very likely has a very strong case for defamation at this point, because one, he's not been convicted of any of these crimes that they are accusing him of. And again, to be clear, Tom Homan is saying that he's accused of human trafficking, but let's be very clear. Again, he was charged with, he was indicted for transportation of undocumented migrants. Let me explain what that is for people who are don't understand what this means. Transportation of undocumented migrants is nowhere in that code for human trafficking. What it basically means is that someone in your vehicle, they could be your friend, they could be a family member, it could be anybody. The mere fact that they are undocumented and in your vehicle, you are, guess what? You're being indicted for transporting an undocumented migrant. That is what Abrego Garcia was indicted for, not for what Tom Homan is saying. But again, if we go back and look at what Tom Homan said on April 15th, we know he has a really bad track record of making bad predictions. He said if somehow he comes back, this is from April, remind you, when the Trump administration tried to defy the Supreme Court's ruling to send him back. So Tom Homan said if somehow he comes back and that happens, he's going to be detained and removed again. What's the sense of bringing someone back who's simply going to be face deportation again? Well, guess what, Tom Homan? You were wrong. And you can see where people like Gunther Engelman here said, boom, Caroline Leavitt just exposed the Democrats for defending an illegal alien gang member, saying, and this is the quote that Caroline Leavitt used, if he ever ends up back in the United States, he would immediately be deported again. Nothing will change the fact that Abrego Garcia will never be a Maryland father. He will never live in the United States of America again. Guess what? Abrego Garcia is walking our streets right now because of how ruthless this administration has been. And you can see Stephen Miller saying California has outright stolen house seats just by counting illegal aliens in the census. Here's the thing, Stephen Miller. Illegal aliens get counted on the census across this country, not just in California. And illegal aliens, as you word it, is because guess what? They are in this country and they get counted. In fact, if you look at it, undocumented migrants can vote in local and state elections. They are still afforded constitutional rights. But this is more fear-mongering done by this administration. This was posted by Joshua Reed Equal, by the way, from Project Liberal. I would encourage anybody to go check them out. They are a great organization. This is something that Joshua Reed Equal posted, saying, you watch as a child sobs for his mother while masked agents of the state prepare to drag her away. I want you guys to listen to this. I want you guys to listen to this, and this is what this administration is doing. I want to warn you guys, this is extremely troubling. It is extremely emotional, just as a warning.
He's coming with you, man. I don't have any choice. I don't have any choice.
No, mami.
Hey, will you stand up and come with us?
No, vale, no vale. No vale. Please.
I understand, sir, but you have to come with us.
Please, no.
You have to come with us.
I want you guys to hear the cries of those children. You know, it's very sad to me when I hear Republicans have no sympathy, because here's the deal. Republicans and MAGA have this strange, sad reality that if it doesn't happen to them, they feel no empathy. They feel no sympathy for these individuals. But this is the real life consequences of these policies. A child clinging to their mother as their mother is ripped away and deported off to a faraway land. It is so embarrassing to watch Republicans' sense of humanity fade away. I know for a fact that any person who has children, and I know many Republicans who do have children, I would encourage any of them to sit there, and I bet you none of them would sit there and stand and watch as this child in front of this child and look this mother in the eyes, look this child in the eyes and say, your mother broke the law, bye-bye. None of what's being said in chat by some of the MAGA Republicans right now would be said in the face of this mother. It is sad. It's a sad time that we've gone through. I have children. And when I sit here and I listen to this child cry, it breaks my heart. Because you see, here's the thing. When we talk about immigration, you see, we can have humanity in our immigration policies. Those individuals who are violent offenders, who don't pay federal income taxes, who don't go and work a 9-to-5 job or even more overtime without actually getting overtime pay because they're undocumented. Those who don't own property, by the way, you can own property as an undocumented migrant. I can understand those people being deported. But these individuals who are going to work, paying their taxes, contributing to society, their children are potentially U.S. citizens, thanks to birthright citizenship that Trump wants to get rid of. Those people should not be deported. Those people have contributed to our society, and we should actually work for a way to try to provide. It's the American dream. That is the American thing to do. That is the American thing to do. To look a mother in her eyes who has contributed to the society as the child clings to her arm, crying about her mother being ripped away, and to sit there and tell her, this is your fault. It's heartless. We didn't see Tom Holman. So again, I think we'll leave it there. I think that last part is where we'll end the segment on that part. All right. One second here. I'm going to read some chats here. Let's go ahead and read the chat. All right. So again, it's absolutely tragic to watch what is unfolding. Okay. So let's see. So again, we'll just go through here. I'm totally cool with doing that. Zipping Lake said due process is in our constitution if we're ending birthright citizenship when y'all leaving the country. Yeah, that's a good point, right? Zipping Lake. Rest of the countries in the world must be super evil, huh? Yeah, the rest of the countries around the world are more humane than our country is. That's for sure. We voted for this. Time to take America back from the loony left. More like the disheveled right. That's what it looks like to me. I have no problem just going through it. Then they can take them. Take who? The kids? The kids that are possibly American citizens? Why should we even get rid of this mother from America if she's contributing to our society? There's a humanity there that Republicans have just simply gone through. And why? Because politicians have preyed upon the emotions, and dare I say, racist emotions of some of the Republican Party. This is the Democrat playbook. Just like in England, they care about non-citizens than they do American citizens. No, I am saying that our American citizens are absolutely fine. But again, the problem is that this is like some kind of dichotomy that we have to have. It's a false dichotomy. The idea that we have to care about Americans more than we do. Wait, I'm not saying that we shouldn't care about American citizens. What I am saying is that we should bring in more American citizens like this woman who is very likely, based on statistical likelihood, contributed to our society, who likely has a job here in the United States, contributed to the American booming economy. That's who I am for. Make her an American citizen. Make her the ability to be able to contribute with a social security card or whatever they're able to give to provide for taxes. Give her a legal pathway so she can take part in the American project. But you guys, and we'll get to this eventually here in a minute, want to just get rid of them for what I can only conclude to be potentially the color of their skin. Give me 1 second as I try to go through here. I'm trying to figure out where I can put this piece. I know I had the National Guard stuff up here somewhere. We'll get to that in a minute. Give me 1 minute. I'm trying to find it. I had it up here somewhere. That's the RFK stuff. This is the economy stuff. Oh, shoot. Where did I put the National Guard stuff? There it is. All right. Put this over here. All right. Sorry about that, guys. The earliest thing and the easiest thing in the world is to be hateful and without empathy when you're behind a screen with no recourse. Don't argue with these in chat. They're cowards. Sure, I agree with you, Alberto. Well, I've been real lenient in the past of just letting these guys roam free, but my patience is running incredibly thin on allowing some of these people in chat. So if you want to spew hate in chat, you can go spew it somewhere else. I have no room for that. Yes, you do care more about criminals than an open borders than you do American citizens. Own it. That's the Democrat Party. No, the Democrat Party is not for open borders. You've been fed the Republican propaganda line. That is not what the Democrats are for. They are for a pathway to citizenship for those who are deserving of it, but nowhere can you find, and maybe you can find somewhere in the deep trenches of the web, but the mainstream Democrats do not talk about allowing criminal undocumented migrants into our country. And when I talk about criminals, let's be very clear. I'm categorizing violent offenders, not people that you deem to be committing what is the equivalent of a traffic infraction. It's not a false economy. Our housing and jobs and votes and taxes and schools are not a false economy. I don't know what you're talking about, God. Some people want to be here, but they don't want to be American. Democrats are giving away our housing, our jobs, our schools, our tax resources, and our votes and pretend like they're the good guys. Gob, you have been absolutely radicalized by the Republican base. I would encourage you to go spend even a modicum of an hour of research to go and see that your view is just deeply misunderstood. You show empathy to an individual in front of you. You personally help someone in need. You do not castigate people on policy positions and call that empathy. My empathy, am I supposed to show empathy to an individual who's been so radicalized? Not everybody in chat that is obviously Republican is necessarily radicalized, but there are certainly individuals who have participated in chat who seemingly are radicalized. Am I supposed to show empathy for that individual? Again, we talked about Christianity earlier. I'd encourage people to look at the fact that Republicans and the talking points that are being spewed, and even in this chat right now by Republicans, they would have deported Jesus. They would have deported Jesus. Jesus was a nomad. Jesus spoke up against Rome. He took in the tax collector. Matthew was a tax collector. He took in the outcasts of society. He showed what it was to be empathetic. But you see, this is what I talked about earlier when I talked about how the MAGA party preyed upon the Christian religion of those on the right, because guess what? If they followed the true biblical ethics, they would love thy neighbor. But they don't love thy neighbor. They love thy neighbor when it is convenient for them during election time. Jesus would have come in the entry point on the border. I don't know if that's necessarily true. Jesus' time, there was hardly any borders, quite frankly. So There was not ever an open border. Stop with the lie. 100% Wilbur. There was never an open border. It was always theoretically closed. How can MAGA call themselves Christian? My guess, it's anybody's guess why, right? Well, they love to call themselves Christian. And again, and I say this, there's a parable that Jesus told about that log in your own eye. And again, when you get into the theology of it all, Jesus was not telling us not to judge others. Rather, if you are to judge somebody, lest you be judged the same way. I, for one, am telling these alleged followers of Christ that the way in which they are following Jesus' teachings, specifically when it comes to the principle of love thy neighbor, they're not following that at all, quite frankly. You are twisting the words of the Bible. Loving thy neighbor does not mean being perverts. I don't know what you're talking about, Patterd, but okay. Rome had borders, dum-dum. Oh, so we should be more like Rome. And we'll get into that idea of Rome. Okay. Let's get into this here now. So I didn't finish this off because I was supposed to mention this with Vance. I had my storyline mixed up, but I'll mention this as well. So you see here, Vance saying, so that sense of shared American identity, the sense that we are part of the same American family, I think that gets destroyed when you import 20 million or 30 million people. But again, this is just patently him trying to stoke the flames of othering a particular group of individuals. Vance is saying that, you know, the issue here has always been about immigration. They don't want immigration at all. Quite frankly, if they could have it where they could completely shut down the border and again, I encourage you to look at who they are arresting. Remember when they plaster, again, nothing that gets done in this administration is done on accident. It's done with a very intentional purpose in mind. And ask yourself why you have not seen any of the posters being posted by this administration showing any Asian individuals or any European migrants that have overstayed their visas. Ask yourself why they always seem to be Hispanic individuals. Ask yourself that question. So let's talk about the tariffs, or talk about the economy. Okay. First of all, guys, we have 330 people in here. Before we get into the next segment, please hit that like, subscribe, notification bell. We want to get up to at least 50 likes. If we can get up to 100 likes, that is our main goal of this show. It gets us further in the algorithm. There are 333 people of you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, even those who are spewing potentially hatred in the chat. All right. So let's move forward with this segment because they're weighing in court now against the convicts. F no, I would dislike if I could. Well, if you are so inclined, then you can go somewhere else. That's great. Goodbye. Because that is what MSNBC, ABC, and CNBC and CNN tells you, I am not paid by any of those people. And again, I'm able to think on my own. In fact, if you look at this one right here, this is Fox News source, buddy. So try again. We do not owe them the right to come into our country, just like you do not owe homeless people your house. Very Christian-like of you. Very Christian-like. All right. Bob Johnson, especially hateful folks, hate still counts the algorithm. Yeah, the hateful people don't realize as they're coming in here and chatting, they're boosting my signal message. And so thank you for boosting my signal message. Unlike Pete Hegseth, with his signal message being leaked. All right, let's get on with the economy. Fox News, delivery denied. Mexico pauses package shipments to the U.S. ahead of Trump tariff deadline. Apparently, the de minimis exemption and the fact that this is going on, a lot of countries right now are holding packages from being shipped to the United States, which is surely going to increase costs on the consumer. It looks like a jobs report is coming out next week, and they asked the Governor Kevin Hassett what he thought about this. Are you going to believe the numbers? And his advisor, Trump's econ advisor, said, ha, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to make it so that the numbers are more reliable, something that we need a new team to have a look at. Remember, Trump only likes good numbers, not bad numbers. And when they're bad numbers, you get fired. When you don't fall in line with his agenda, you get fired. And I especially appreciate what is going on here with this picture showing just how much your backyard barbecue is getting more expensive. You can see bread is up 8%, lettuce is up 3%, ground beef, by the way, beef prices have soared, are up 28%, and American cheese is up 8%. That nice burger that costs you $5, guys, is going to cost you $10 now. You want that backyard barbecue, it's going to get a whole lot more expensive. It's going to be like the old days of caviar. Thank you, Donald Trump, for increased prices. Remember, I'm going to bring down grocery prices on day one. And he did not bring grocery prices down on day one. In fact, quite the opposite. We also see Republican representatives facing immense backlash when they go to these town halls. Representative Barry Moore refuses to answer the simple question of who pays Trump's tariffs, leading his constituents at his town hall to start chanting, who pays the tariffs, who pays the tariffs. You see, guys, it's very simple. Who pays the tariffs? You, the end consumer. There's been about $150 million or billion dollars raised, I believe they've said, in tariffs. Yeah, but guess who pays those tariffs, guys? You, the consumer. But he's not the only person at the Republican in town hall that is facing a lot of issues. You can see Republican Congressman Mark Alford responds to angry constituent in his town hall, and he says, if you didn't want to hear my lies, why'd you come here? Almost like he forgot the idea that he represents his district. You see, Republicans have lost sight, and they're so used to being fed what they want to hear, they've forgotten that they represent an entire district, and some of their constituents are rightfully upset because their prices are going up. They're going to lose their Medicare, their Medicaid, their SNAP benefits. Rural hospitals are going to close down due to Donald Trump's big, wasteful spending bill. See, they've forgotten and they've lost the plot of who they represent. They don't represent Donald Trump. They represent their constituents in their district. Here's the funny thing about those numbers, though, we talked about just a minute ago. You can see that Rapid Response 47, which essentially is just Trump's propaganda arm here, saying second quarter GDP has been revised up to 3.3%, while inflation has been revised down to 2%, right on track with the Fed's target rate. So now they're cheering on that these numbers are accurate because they're favorable. Remember what we talked about. And you can see Mehdi Hassan saying, hold on, wasn't the Trump administration entire mantra just weeks ago that revisions to economic data can't be believed and anyone behind revisions must be fired? Oh, wait, that's only for revisions that make them look bad, not good. Got it. That's exactly true. The moment those numbers are great, and we saw this, by the way, with inflation numbers, right? So when the inflation numbers first came out back in I think it was the second quarter or whatever it was back in May, we saw numerous Trump officials saying, look it, our economy is working real good. Same numbers, by the way, put out by that BLS commissioner they fired. But the moment they made revisions downward, which is a completely normal event, by the way, Trump then said, nope, we've got to fire them. That's what they said. And then we go to the next one here. California passes Japan as the fourth largest economy. You can see down here, Jesse Waters talking with Jordan Belfort, and Jordan Belfort said, I watched him literally take a great state, really a great state, greatest weather, great economy, and he just destroyed it. Make no mistake, California is a dang good state. Their economy is booming. The fourth largest economy passing Japan. And you can see here, Vance was trying to undermine the Federal Reserve after they've already fired one of the board of governors. I don't think we allow bureaucrats to make decisions about monetary policy and interest rates without any input from the people that were elected to serve the American people. POTUS is much better able to make these determinations. POTUS is better able to make these determinations. You go and ask what a Republican representative in Congress is there to do, they would tell you that they're there to do Trump's bidding. You go down to the states and ask you, what is your responsibility? They say, because we want to make sure Trump's agenda is fulfilled. You see, Republicans have been so propagandized that they are now brainwashed and to believing that they have to do every single thing that this administration asks them to do, forgetting that there are constituents, the American people who elected. And then this is kind of interesting too, because we see this play out with the National Guard, by the way. They don't go and thank the National Guard for their service. No, they thank Donald Trump for making America's streets safer. What happened to Back the Blue? What about the men and women in law enforcement? What about the men and the women in the army and the military? No, it's not about them, guys. It's about Donald Trump. You can see here and this just broke today, by the way, a federal appeals court ruled that most of President Trump's tariffs are illegal. The court is saying the president exceeded his authority. You can't make this up. You see, the problem of why Trump is facing these issues now is because he has built his administration on a foundation of sand, using a biblical principle there, by the way. A foundation of sand that crumbles because guess why? He declared national emergencies anytime that he wants to subvert the will of Congress. He goes and declares a national emergency, and now they're saying, whoa. This doesn't constitute a national emergency. You see, tariffs, by the way, are supposed to be set by Congress. I know we have forgotten this idea, and I've encountered several Republicans that also have forgotten there's more than one person that's in charge of a state, by the way. There's more than one person. There's the mayor, there's the state legislator, there's the state Supreme Court, there's the state courts. But we've gotten so accustomed to one man being so powerful that we have forgotten that there is a multitude of systems in place in states. But I digress. Let's get back to the tariffs. The point of these tariffs is that we've seen this happen with Donald Trump and the National Guard. Donald Trump, when he was asked, how are you going to get around the 30-day deadline for the Homestead Act or whatever the act was that allowed the Home Rules Act or whatever, allowing him to keep the National Guard in place. He said, well, I'll just declare a national emergency. We also saw in his cabinet meeting last week where he said, I'm the president. I can do whatever I want. Well, the federal appeals court is saying, not today, Trump. Trump wasn't happy about this naturally. So he took to True Social, saying all tariffs are still in effect today. A highly partisan appeals court incorrectly said that our tariffs should be removed, but they know the United States of America will win in the end. He babbles on all the way through here. And he said, for many years, tariffs were allowed to be used against us by our uncaring and unwise politicians. Now, with the help of the United States, now listen to how he words this, guys. I want you to listen to how he words this. Now, with the help of the United States Supreme Court, we will use them to the benefit of our nation, America, make America rich, strong, and powerful again. Thank you for your attention to this matter. You see, Donald Trump thinks the Supreme Court is on his side. He believes that the Supreme Court, and this is the thing, right? Remember when we talked about DEI? Remember how Republicans talk about DEI and unqualified people being put into positions? Remember who Trump nominated? He nominated Kavanaugh. I believe he nominated Gorsuch, and he nominated Amy Coney Barrett. All three of them sit on the Supreme Court. Now we are seeing just why he nominated the Supreme Court, because he thought they were going to be loyalists. And he thinks the Supreme Court is going to do their bidding. Except the problem is that they didn't do his bidding. If we remember back in April with, again, the Kilmar-Abrego-Garcia case, the Supreme Court told him, hey, you need to return Abrego-Garcia back to the United States. But they didn't return him. They defied the Supreme Court. So what I imagine Trump will do in this situation is he's probably going to defy the Supreme Court. I'd imagine the Supreme Court may rule that it is, in fact, unconstitutional, and Donald Trump will just ignore it. So we're not through with this story just yet. It is certainly a celebration, but it is, and then it also begs a lot of questions. All of these companies have paid billions of dollars to the Treasury Department for these tariffs. Will they be refunded for these tariffs? Could you imagine that bill and Donald Trump being responsible for that bill? Oof. And you can see now Japan's trade negotiator cancels U.S. visit over the tariff deal snag. Representative Garcia said this is a great ruling by the court. Of course, Donald Trump is already overreacting, saying this is going to somehow be the destruction of the United States. I'm not sure if he's aware he's trying to do that all on his own. And that is the conclusion here. Donald Trump is claiming that these courts are ruining our country and trying to not be patriotic. And we've seen this, by the way, the same rhetoric being espoused in the executive order for the desecration of the American flag. You see, the reality is Donald Trump is crumbling our institutions. He's removing unionization efforts on our federal workers. He's firing people that he has no business firing. Donald Trump is the one, as Representative Garcia says here, that is trying to destroy our institutions. It is baffling to watch in real time. All right, let's get into chat. As you guys know, I try to do segments, and this is why I ignore chat for a good 10, 15 minutes, is because we do these segments. I react to chat, go on to the next segment, just as you guys are unaware. That is what we do. Guys, we're up to 34 likes. Before I get into addressing chat, let's get to 50. Come on, guys. We can do it. There's 332 of you guys in here. If every single one of you guys hit the like button, we would be up to 330 likes. That'd be crazy. That'd be a record. Right now, we're at 100 likes. I think our record's like 150, but I think that's like pushing it. Anyways, guys, let's see here. I'm just going to go through here. I don't care. I'm just going to start nuking stuff here. Trump is crumbling Trump is crumbling your institutions. No, he's crumbling all of our institutions. Nuisance is complacent in criminal negligence for the prevention of wildfires. Criminal negligence involves reckless behavior or failure to act when there is a duty to do so, causing harm. Well, I don't know, Corn Pop, if what you're referring to is Gavin Newsom preventing wildfires. As a matter of fact, you having this superhero daddy complex with Trump didn't do anything and certainly pulled back that aid that Gavin Newsom certainly could use. And Donald Trump also does that as well, part of his intimidation tactics. He takes away federal funding as a way of a carrot saying, hey, you want this little shiny carrot? Well, guess what? You should abide by my policies. Typical intimidation tactics. I love the fact that these Republicans have nothing to say about what you're putting out there. Oh, wait, they're going to blame it on Biden. You're correct, E-Money. That's exactly what they're going to do. Welcome in, by the way. Welcome back, Dan Fries. Welcome back. Dan Fries, a good, loyal watcher of the stream. Liberal, socialism, Marxism, communism. Don't know what you're talking about there, Paul. New scum? No, it's not new scum. I don't put you in timeout for that because I'm over it. All right. Trump is making America great again. This is ridiculous BS. I think you need a new hobby. I think you can go somewhere else and espouse the crazy rhetoric you're espousing. Double tap the screen, people. Yes, Paul, thank you so much. If you could double tap the screen, I would greatly appreciate it. Phony patriot right wingers. Exactly. Yeah, I will say this. I think when you look at the right wing right now, they're deeply unpatriotic. Our founding fathers would be deeply ashamed of what's going on. Hell, they're making Ronald Reagan look like a Democrat, to be honest with you. I'll say this. I think that the left wing is now the patriotic party. They are far more patriotic, more American, far more inclusive of all American values. The right wing has absolutely abandoned any and all American values. They were small government. Now they're big government. They love their daddy government. They were for states' rights until they forfeited those states' rights over to the, guess what? Federal government. It's funny too, because we look at what's going on in New York with Mamdani, right? Where Mamdani wanted to open up a government-run grocery store and all of the Republicans lost their minds saying this is communism, this is socialism, and everything else under the sun. Yet when Donald Trump ends up taking a 10% stake with your taxpayer money in Intel and wanting to do this with more companies, they go, nah, it's not communism. We're okay with it. We're okay with it, guys. Rules for thee, not for me. Haha, unpatriotic, absolute nonsense. The left is attempting to destroy America. Trump actually loves America. Show me how Trump loves America. He's deporting people who hold American values. He's eroding our institutions, eroding our constitutionally afforded rights. Show me where the patriotism is there for Trump. Oh, and then trying to go and shake hands with Putin as opposed to trying to be friendly towards Zelensky, saying he wants to meet with Kim Jong-un in North Korea. Yeah, all that's going on. Epstein files. Yeah, now releasing the Epstein files. You guys are so unpatriotic. You want to open the borders. Everyone again. You guys are so obsessed with the borders. It's amazing to me. You really bought into this propaganda. It's crazy, bro. Marxism, communism, socialism, all in the same party. You're funny. You don't even know what those words mean. Bet you don't even know what those words mean. Every time I actually talked about this earlier on a TikTok panel. I was talking with them. I said, it's wild to me because those people on the right tend to use liberals as a way to just blanket statement, make a statement for essentially what they mean when they say liberals is communists. Okay. But what they don't understand is that liberals are essentially like the center left party, right? They're kind of like, and then again, progressives, socialists and communists and Marxists, all of those tend to not like progressives. But again, we get along more than we disagree. And I think I would even sympathize more with them than I certainly would on the right. How did Trump even get elected as a convict? That's a great question, Steve. He probably couldn't even vote. I don't know if he's able to vote, given that he's a felon. Liberals are nuts, but they all suck. Yeah. Okay. Whatever you don't like is propaganda, even though it's true. What is propaganda? What's propaganda? Again, it's all propaganda. Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. He can't in Florida. Okay, I guess they allow felons to vote in California and Florida. In Texas, if I'm not mistaken, federal election laws is that if you're a felon, you can't vote. But maybe I'm wrong. I haven't looked in a while. Liberal men are very emotional. Too much estrogen. Oh, that's sad. Okay, well then you can go somewhere else. Then I guess I don't care. Winter illegal is more important than natives. Borders keep them out. Americans will be saved. Now Trump is in control. See, this kind of rhetoric concerns me to no end because again, the Republican base has done such an incredible job. This reminds me actually of the 1940s. Okay. Remember in the 1940s when they would do this with the Japanese, right? We had Japanese internment camps. There was the Japanese scare, right? This is similar to the 60s, by the way, with the communist scare, but more so with the Japanese, where anybody who was a Japanese citizen should have been put into an internment camp. That's what they said, right? This is the same kind of rhetoric, right? Anybody that is Hispanic, because that's what they really mean when they say closing down the borders. They're not going to talk about European migrants or Asian migrants. No, they're not going to talk about those individuals, but they will talk about when they say close the borders. They're definitely referring to Hispanics here. They're saying they're committing all these crimes. They every time they come in, they do one crime per undocumented migrant. This is the exact same language that led to Japanese internment camps. We're seeing this, by the way, play out already where ICE agents are just jumping out of the back of box vans and just going and rounding up anybody they see. Just open season. And then they arrest them, get to the station and realize, oh, wait, this is an American citizen. But remind me how the Democrats are the hateful party here. Remind me about that. It's obviously more than one crime because there's the crime that they committed that they were talking about, and then there's the crime of breaking into the country. Dustin, it's funny you mentioned that, buddy, because the crime of coming into the country is not a deportable offense. It's the equivalent of a traffic infraction. In fact, if you look at, I believe it's 8 USC 1325 is the one you're referring to. It's illegal entry into the United States. The punishment is a fine or up to 6 months in jail. It is not a deportable offense. In fact, a lot of other European countries have similar laws in place. The deportation hearings come as a side effect of that. And I don't think the crime, and again, I would propose this to anybody. Okay, you're saying they're criminal. Can you provide what crimes that they commit here in the United States that if we were to put that one off the table of them crossing the border illegally, which again is not necessarily a deportable offense, and nor would I want it to be a deportable offense, what then should be? Because by that same logic, should we deport people who just commit traffic infractions? It's hysterical. Now they'll clearly say yes behind a keyboard, and I'm well aware of that. But for those who are reasonable people, I think we would all agree the answer is no. We shouldn't deport people who commit a traffic infraction of simply maybe speeding a little bit over, right? 5 over. Spare me that. Why would we put that off the table? Because again, I don't think crossing the border illegally in and of itself is a deportable offense. For example, right? Let's say that you crossed the border illegally and let's hypothetically say you had a valid asylum claim. Those are two different instances. You did cross the border illegally, right? So it is a criminal offense, but you crossed it to claim asylum, which is according to our laws, you have 1 year to claim asylum. that in itself is an excuse for you to stay here in this country. Now, of course, our asylum laws change all the time, and I'm willing to admit that. But you can see where there is an issue here, right? Maybe you have protective status because something's going on in your country or there's unrest, and we have declared that there's a temporary protective status for that particular country. So again, you crossing the border illegally is moot in my point. But there's a legal way to cross the border to claim asylum. You don't just cross the border. You people want it both ways. Yes, it's called you can cross the border. You don't have to go to a port of entry. There's nowhere in the law that says you have to go to a port of entry because I know what you're referring to. You can cross the border anywhere. And as long as you claim asylum within 1 year of crossing, you can then go in and claim asylum. You have up to 1 year and have an asylum hearing. It's called due process. Don't care about the laws. Get them out. We are tired of this. And MAGA just said it all right there. Good job, MAGA. You just exposed MAGA for what they are. They don't want those kinds of people in this country. Real Christian of them, right? You just revealed it. Mask off right there. Thank you. It's amazing to watch this. All right. So let's go on with this. Oops. Let's go to the next story here. We got a lot to cover. Let's see. All right. Let's see. You can't just come asylum to call it asylum coming from Canada or Mexico. There's no reason to claim asylum. See, and that right there, Dustin, is exactly the reason I have a problem. When you're saying you just can't claim asylum, you can't just claim asylum to call it asylum coming from Canada or Mexico. There's no reason to claim asylum. There's absolute reason to claim asylum if you're coming from another country. Not everybody that's coming here to this country is coming from Mexico. They could be coming from another war-torn country. In fact, we're going to get to Venezuela here in a minute. We're about to cause a whole lot of unrest in Venezuela right now, buddy. All right, let's continue to go on. Democrats want illegals to do slave labor for us, lower than livable wages. No, I want these people to be American citizens so they no longer have to be given slave wages. I want them to become American citizens so they have to, so that these companies have to follow our laws, our labor laws. So if they're being paid less than minimum wage, no, you know what? Make them citizens. There you go. Easy problem. Solve it. But you don't want that. You don't want that. You don't want them to be American citizens. You want them deported. All right, let's continue on. Let me go ahead and clear out some of these stories. We're almost there. That's still there. Oops, right here. Okay, let's talk about RFK. So RFK fired some CDC directors and it caused a stir in the news. You can see here a video of Donald Trump bribed to RFK Jr., which helped him win the 2024 election. This is from August of last year, saying Trump calling RFK Jr. a month ago, dangling a senior position as admin to him, which obviously he took. We all know that now. He went in front of Congress and said that, you know, he wasn't going to be as radical as he was made out to be, and he's been every bit radical since. But this is just a daily reminder that it's all an act. There is RFK Jr. on that plane remember when McDonald's was the meme of owning the libs? Yep, there it is, right in bold. We've also seen him coming out of tanning salons, by the way. So that's a thing. But while we're talking on the topic of health, remember how they say, think about the kids, thoughts and prayers? Yeah, pediatric brain cancer group to lose federal funding. A network dedicated to early phase trials of treatment for children with brain cancer will be phased out. Can't make this stuff up. Can't make this stuff up. They don't care about the children whatsoever. You can see Stephen Miller saying Secretary Kennedy, one of the world's foremost experts on public health. By the way, Secretary Kennedy was an environmental attorney. There is really the world's foremost experts on public health. World's foremost expert on public health. This man has no qualifications on health. He's an old dude with a raspy voice who's admitted, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong in this, allegedly taking steroids, saying it's working hard to restore the credibility of the CDC as a scientific organization committed to the scientific method. Let's be very clear. Kennedy the other day said that we can go look at children and just know something is wrong with them. Real scientific method there, huh, Stephen Miller? But here's Stephen Miller last year saying RFK Jr. is a leftist socialist globalist who supports the Paris Climate Accord plan to shut down U.S. fossil fuel and bankrupt the U.S. middle class. It's crazy to see this. And here's the CDC director, Susan Moneras, that was removed from office. And as Isaac Saul says here, to be clear, CDC director Susan Moneras was nominated by Trump and confirmed in a party line vote 51-47 by Republicans a month ago. And Secretary Kennedy fired Susan Moneras. She refused to resign amid pressure to change vaccine policy, so now RFK Jr. is trying to fire her. This is literally their pick for this post. You see this news story here saying hours after the Department of Health and Human Services announced early Wednesday evening that Moneras was no longer the director, her lawyers responded with a fiery statement saying she had not resigned nor been fired. They accused HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy of weaponizing public health for political gain and putting millions of Americans' lives at risk. When CDC Director Susan Moneras refused to rubber stamps unscientific, reckless directives and fired dedicated health experts, she chose protecting the public over serving a political agenda. They're trying to politicize the CDC. Wild. So, on the topic of health, we see that Trump has no public events scheduled all weekend, and he wasn't seen today either. Now, could be that he's taking a break. Totally valid. Could be fair. Might be going to golfing because we know Trump loves golfing. Remember, Donald Trump took how many vacations already? Yeah, quite a bit. Wasn't a big segment, so I'll go ahead and address chat. You're so wrong, but your youth is your ignorance. I have 50 licensed years plus in medicine, and they need to refund the child cancer with Western medicine because they are not helping anyone. I don't know what you're talking about, Sharon, but okay. They don't have to live that way where they're from. Their country make their country. I'm not going to continue talking about immigration. We're just going to move on from it. They do make most of this up from the exact place to your effing looking at it. I don't know what you're talking about. You mean like the CDC being politicized and profited during? No, it was not politicized and profited during that time frame. If you look at Big Pharma, they certainly did make quite a bit of money during that time. But again, I would expect that given the fact that it was kind of like essentially the race to find a cure for cancer. It was expected. Oh, yeah, because you were okay with confused male. Okay. See, again, you don't even know what you're talking about. And because I know where you're going with it, goodbye. I don't need you in my chat. What about your 300-pound slob with a health representative? Again, goodbye. Democrats plantation folks, that all this channel is. Well, if that's what you think, then you can go away as well. Biden took a vacation during his whole term. No, he didn't. In fact, if you look at what Donald Trump is doing, he is certainly on track to be taking far more vacations, which, by the way, the crazy thing about this is I remember very, very vividly a report that came out during Trump's first administration that saw that Trump actually charged the Secret Service quite a bit of money for staying at Mar-a-Lago. So the more that Trump vacations at Mar-a-Lago, the more money he's making. It exactly was because there was the left pushing laws with zero evidence behind what they mandated. See, again, it's ironic you get so offended by masks, yet you're not offended in the slightest with the government parading through your streets with the military knocking down doors looking for suspects. Inconsistent principles. That's what this is. J.D. Vance has taken 8 vacations so far. Yeah, he's taken a lot. And it was like really in the short span of the summer. Exactly, Dan Fries. Yeah, he's taken a lot. He's actually, he had shut down Disneyland, okay, because he wanted to take his family there. Trump spent $141 million playing golf his first term. Yeah, that was $140 million. And we'll get to some of the wasteful spending here in just a minute, by the way. Please follow all the director positions and donate their paychecks to the hungry and the homeless. You know what? Well, there's a whole lot of ways we could feed the hungry and the homeless, and we'll get to that here in a minute as well. I don't want to spoil it. I'm not a suspect. No reason to worry. MAGA is crying so hard tonight. Yeah, Dan. Yeah, I know that the hate watchers kind of come in here, and I'm starting to kind of reel them in a little bit. Listen, after the Roni, I'm not listening to any scientist, professional about anything regarding public safety, health, or whatever. Feel free to, but you're listening to RFK, which is not even a health expert, but he claims to be. According to Stephen Miller, he's the world's most renowned health expert. If our country can invest money in destabilizing other countries and title it as USAID in its books, people from those countries can come here and use any reason for asylum. Well, I don't think using USAID is destabilizing countries. In fact, ripping away USAID is destabilizing countries. So again, USAID, by the way, they just had to burn thousands of pounds of food because, again, Trump ripped that away. There are children that are going to be gone because Trump ripped away USAID funding. Basically, child cancer is a boondoggle and research the source because children shouldn't have cancer beyond. Okay, again, here we go. See, and this is kind of like depravity right here. All right, guys. Hey, listen. We have 246 people in here. Please hit the like, subscribe, notification bell. We're already at 53 likes. Thank you so much for that. Let's try to get to 100 likes, please. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. The dog wants out. So I was trying to get my wife on there. Appreciate it, Chef Omar, for subscribing. All right, let's go into the next one here. Trump has, we already read that. Let's go on. Keep going. Give me 1 second. So here we go. Gavin Newsom here was speaking at an event for Politico, and he said Donald Trump isn't joking about 2028. Let's take a listen to what he has to say.
You're not saying you think Republicans are going to stop it.
I don't think Donald Trump wants another election. You think for a second I have 24 Trump 2028 hats. His folks keep sending me.
The scary thing is how much the crowd is laughing right now, but it's not a joke. Trump is showing our world leaders Trump 2028 hats. We're seeing Gavin Newsom, or we're seeing allegedly Trump people sending Gavin Newsom a Trump 2028 hat.
And you think he's going to run again?
Who spends $200 million on a ballroom at their home and then leaves the house?
You're not saying you think Republicans are going to.
And then you can see here, any institution that cultivates individuals or independent thinking is under assault. It's time to wake up, America. Let's go ahead and listen to this from Gavin Newsom.
I also believe public institutions. I believe this UC system, which has over 13,800 active patents, more than any other system in the world.
Yeah, so this obviously is referring to them defunding some of our research organizations and trying to convince and fire the CDC director and things of that nature as well. We also see where the Fulton County Commissioner in Georgia will be fined $10,000 a day for refusing to appoint 2 Republican associated with voter fraud conspiracies to the county's election board. They're going to be fined $10,000 for refusing to appoint 2 Republicans that were convicted of this. See, you guys, you have to understand, Texas has already gerrymandered. They signed into law today to allow the redistricting to go through. They are now trying to put in the pieces of the puzzle to try to essentially do what they can to win these midterms because they know what's at stake here. If Democrats win this election, they will impeach Donald Trump. Make no mistake of it. I'm not showing any cards here. It's well known, and Republicans know it just as much as well. And make no mistake, Donald Trump certainly knows that as well. This is why there's rumors already that they're going to be posting up National Guard troops at polling sites. This is a rumor that's going around. It seems to be taking some steam. You can also see Trump likely responding to bad poll numbers, might convene as a new RNC meeting ahead of the midterms. Again, what I talked about, right? They're fearful that Democrats will take power. And so now he's wanting to convene an RNC. Why would you do that? To rally the base and try to get the base excited. And I think this is important to note. Yes, do I believe Donald Trump is going to try to make some kind of an effort to run in 2028? Yes, I think he's going to try to make some kind of an effort. However, I think there is also the play right here that you can see with Emerson polling showing J.D. Vance having a 51% lead when it comes to the Republican primary. J.D. Vance has been spotted going to numerous locations over the past week, touting Trump's big, beautiful bill and big, beautiful agenda. This is the thing about Republicans. They are playing the long game. They've been able to rely on one candidate their entire time, and that was Donald Trump. And they know going into 2028, they're not going to have Trump. So they're running with Vance. The same guy, by the way, who criticized Trump in like 2015. Or was it 2017? I don't remember. It was one of those 2 years. Same guy, but now he is going to essentially try to become the Trump light. He is going out there and campaigning already. Democrats need to take note. Democrats need to take note about this. Listen, I understand we have issues in the Democrat Party because we love to try to find different candidates that match our own personal agendas, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we have to understand while we are still trying to get our stuff together, they have already figured out who their candidate is for 2028. It's one of two people. It's either Vance or Trump, and that's what they're going to do. You got Rubio at 9.4%, DeSantis at 7.1%. None of them two are making a campaign stop, but guess who is? Vance. So again, Democrats take note, rally behind one single candidate and get it going now. Don't waste time. If it's Newsom, and so be it, and let Newsom go. But here it is here on the Will Cain Show. J.D. Vance dunks on Gavin Newsom for trying to imitate Trump. You can't mimic the king. Again, this verbiage is used for a very particular reason. It's one of several reasons, but one certainly could be nonchalant, the king. It's also very likely that he's trolling, again, trying to own the libs. That's his entire administration is own the libs. Real clever. The other one is trying to normalize the idea of a king. And I think that it's that. We can look at the fact of what they're trying to do with normalize the National Guard on streets. We have become so used to there being lawsuits that anytime I see that a federal appeals court has ruled, for example, like we saw earlier, that Trump's tariffs are illegal, I go, well, we'll wait until it gets to the Supreme Court and see what happens. Because I'm so numb to it all now. There's so many lawsuits because of Trump's unconstitutional behavior. But we've normalized it. We've normalized the idea. This is what they're going to do with 2028, Trump 2028. Say it a million times and eventually it becomes true. And then the ironic thing is this Cain figure, man, on Fox News, he's consistently making blunder after blunder after blunder. You could see here that Cain saying the truth isn't partisan. The truth is most major cities, the United States are run by Democrat governors. Well, Cain, not quite sure that's how it works out, but I believe cities are run by mayors. Last I checked. But I don't blame him because I go back to what I was saying earlier. We have normalized the idea that there is one man in charge and that's it. It's either Hot Wheels Abbott. It's either going to be Trump, right? We're used to seeing one man in power because Trump has normalized the idea of consolidation of power. But we have failed and understood that there is several layers to our states and our local governments. We have the school board, we have city council, we have the mayor. We go all the way up to our local representatives for our state senators. We go all the way up to our state courts, our local courts, our state Supreme Court, our state appellate courts. We've gotten so accustomed to looking at one man because of Donald Trump's consolidation of power that we have completely swallow my own spit. I'm good. We have absolutely forgotten about how much is there. Ooh, took a breath at the wrong time. So I think I'll leave that segment there. Probably right before I started coughing. Trump went bankrupt 6 times. What did Newsom do with his homeless when the Chinese came for a visit? He rounded them up and they're trying to institutionalize them. That is what Donald Trump's plan is for the homeless. He wants to institutionalize the homeless and bring back insane asylums. I do not agree 100% with any of these people. It's very good to point out the failures of public official servants sucking up taxpayer funds. Sure, like Donald Trump sucking up taxpayer funds by going to Mar-a-Lago for vacations. Like your passion. Thank Paul. Got a little choked up by that passion. Passion got me choked up. What a nuisance. Let's see. All right, let's continue on. Oh, God. All right. So it's okay for Newsom to do it? Do what? What's with those of DC? I don't know. Okay, let's continue on. We're almost there. We're almost at the end of these segments. The last one is about the National Guard in DC. Insane asylums are run by insane people. Why do you think they closed them down? Because they were violating a lot of people's rights. 100%, Jose. 100%. And this is the problem I have, right? Is Donald Trump is trying to institute institutions again for an indeterminate amount of time. In other words, that they can institutionalize them for however long they see fit. Because it's not beautiful. Trump likes streets where there's not homeless people. Again, remember those Christian values? Remember what I talked about with Jesus? Trump would have institutionalized Jesus. I'm not even playing you that. You can go and look. Jesus was a nomad. For all intents and purposes, he was homeless. Trump would have absolutely institutionalized Jesus. Come up with some solutions. So, for solutions for the homeless, I would say government funding. I know it sounds cliche, but I would say certain rehabilitative programs. I'm not opposed to potential government-run rehabilitative programs that I would say that you can propose to these homeless individuals. We can work on mental health programs. Believe it or not, I actually saw somebody mention this to me about the Safe Needle program that they have going on in DC. I actually looked into it. It's actually not terrible, right? I think that if we're looking at it and we try to propose solutions to these individuals and they're refusing to do it, then we should let them do it the correct way in terms of being able to make sure that they are not going to continue to spread diseases and things of that nature as well. We should do what we can to help those individuals. Now, let's be very clear. They're not providing these substances to these homeless people, and they shouldn't. But I think there's something to be said about the safe procedures as well, right? There's also a thing, I believe, in that packet, by the way. It's more than just simply providing them a way to safely do something. There's a little thing on there about rehabilitation programs. There's places to call. I believe there's even Narcan that's in some of these packages. So again, if you're a Republican who believes in limited government, then we should encourage more of that, right? But if you're for big government, then we should have potentially government-ran rehabilitative programs that we could certainly try to provide for these individuals who want that kind of a treatment, right? I also think our justice system needs to try to look at these particular individuals in a way that we are able to handle these individuals that's not going to necessarily leave them with a felony record on their books, right? I think the problem we have is that you punish these individuals with a felony. They get out, they have a felony on their record. They're now already, they were already homeless for all intents and purposes. They were already having a hard time getting a job. Now they're going to be even more inclined to not be able to find a job because they have a felony on the record. So we have to find a way for our justice system to work. So there's just a few solutions. But me giving solutions is going to get kind of boring after a while. So leave them in their filthy, induced state. We need programs and mental hospitals which no longer warehouse patients. Stays are time limited. No, they're not, Dana. If you go and look at Trump's executive order, there's an indeterminate amount of time. They can hold them for as long as they see fit. Once you get the addicts off the street, to give them a private place to do their safely and connect them to programs and get him off. Yeah, I agree with you, Jose. Get them off. All right, let's continue forward. National Guard. So Donald Trump has instituted the National Guard in DC and wants to expand this out to other states. We are seeing Donald Trump go against the wishes of several different Democratic governors. We also see where Republicans are pushing this, trying to normalize the idea of the National Guard perusing through our streets, potentially up to and including the military, even though, let's make no mistake, the National Guard is part of the military. But they're at the behest of these governors. But Trump is trying to use Title 32 to allow them to do law enforcement activities. We have seen them arm the National Guard as well, which is deeply concerning. So we see here Mike Johnson saying that he hopes the National Guard does go to Chicago. And then you see Fox playing a clip of Gavin Newsom pointing out that crime is higher in Louisiana than in California. And the funny thing is, Fox asks him for his response, and Mike Johnson goes, he needs to go and govern his state and not be engaging in this. How rich? Because you see, the reason is, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again for anybody new to the channel, this push for the National Guard has nothing to do with crime. Crime stats across our country right now are down across the country. This has nothing to do with crime. This has everything to do with asserting authority over the governor's wishes. This is a way to intimidate governors into doing their policy. Tom Homan had a message to the Chicago mayor, Brandon Johnson, saying, get out of the way because we're going to do it. Mind you, Tom Homan has already said when it comes to sanctuary cities that he has no problem arresting those mayors. So what could happen here and what will likely happen, and I hope it doesn't, but is what is likely to occur, is the mayors will refuse the National Guard to come into their cities, and they will potentially, I'm waiting for it, it is a matter of time at this point, before they arrest a sitting mayor or governor, because they're going to claim they're harboring fugitives, which this is how Tom Homan has already described their plan to arrest these mayors, because of their sanctuary city policies. Remember what I said earlier. There is always a plan in place for why they are doing what they are doing. And it's no different here. This is the plan. You can see Miller saying the Democrat Party as an institution at every level, it judges, its lawyers, its community activists, and its politicians exists to serve these criminal thugs. Trump is ready to help and assist any community that wishes to be liberated from these criminal elements. I want you guys to see what's happening here. Stephen Miller, just like they did, think about this. What did they do with the undocumented migrants? They said that they were criminals. They said that they were, I'm going to use TikTok language, but unaliving individuals, right? Why was that done? It was done to paint a broad brush for that community. The same thing is being done here. Stephen Miller is trying to normalize the idea that the Democrats are harboring these fugitives, that the Democrats are, in essence, the criminal thugs as well. This is deeply troubling to our country's foundation. You see, the difference between this administration and Joe Biden's administration is that the Joe Biden's administration worked along both parties, worked his best to unify the country. But this administration does everything they possibly can to divide this country. They are doing everything that they can to sit there and say, here is this outcast group. We need to outcast them. Not very Christian now, is it? But you see, what we're finding out from Trump deploying the National Guard in D.C. is that there are some that are absolutely patrolling the streets, but guess what? They're spread. The grand thing they did was spread 380 cubic tons of mulch in Washington, D.C. Imagine being ripped away from your family. Imagine being told you're being deployed to Washington, D.C. for months on end, who knows, just to spread mulch. And this is kind of in line with what Donald Trump is trying to do with this new executive order. Okay? So Donald Trump instituted a new executive order today that kind of went under the radar a lot, quite frankly, which was about making DC or America beautiful again via architecture. You talk about wasteful spending, this is the definition of it. Long story short, they're going to partner with architects to redesign federal buildings across this country. But I want to hit on a few points here. This is the fact sheet, and it says in the 1960s, the federal government largely replaced traditional designs with modernist and brutalist ones, a move that was deeply unpopular. A majority of American taxpayers want classical, regionally inspired public buildings that beautify public spaces, and their government should respect their preferences. But I want you to see this. Want classical. How does this administration define classical? I'm glad you asked. In the actual executive order, it says classical architecture means the architectural tradition derived from the forms, principles, and vocabulary of the architecture of Greek and Roman antiquity, and is later developed and expanded upon by such Renaissance architects as Alberti, Bernardeschi, Michelangelo, and Palladio, such Enlightenment masters as Robert Adam, John Soane, and Christopher Wren, such 19th century architects as Benjamin Henry Latrobe, Robert Mills, and Thomas Walter, and 20th century practitioners as Julian Abel, Daniel Burham, so on and so forth. And this whole thing. The firm of Delano and Aldrich. Classical architecture encompasses such styles as neoclassical, Georgian, Federal, Greek Revival, Beaux Arts, and Art Deco. But again, I go back to the original point here, right? And the vocabulary of the architecture of Greek and Roman antiquity. I thought we wanted to have something that was unique to these locations, not Greek and Roman architecture. If we're to make America great again, why are we not making it unique to American architecture, unique to those locations? I think we kind of know why. So again, the issue I have with this is that this administration is trying to do all this thing. We heard throughout the entire first 6 months of this administration about Doge and wasteful spending. We heard about how wasteful spending is running rampant throughout Washington. But what have they done? They have wasted money through this architecture. They're wasting money right now by having the National Guard come in and spread mulch. These National Guard members who are now no longer a part of their family because they're being told to go here and spend time away from them to do mulch. This is wasteful spending at its prime. All right, let's read the chat. They like the Roman salute. Yeah, winter lived, and that's kind of what I was trying to get at with that. Right? It's very convenient that they're trying to go after Roman architecture. Just saying. And if you go look at this, I didn't want to spend too much time on that segment. Brutalist architecture means a style of architecture that grew out of the early 20th century modernist movements that's characterized by a massive and block-like appearance with a rigid geometric style and large scales. So essentially, they didn't like that style. They didn't like the modern style. They wanted the Greek and Roman style. It's crazy. That is unique. A lot of cities use Italian, Greek, and German, etc. Joe and Road Trip gets into the architecture of our oldest cities. Paying the National Guard twice. Yeah, I mean, there's that as well. Correction, it's costing us. Yeah, exactly, Lay. It's costing us, the taxpayer, for this architecture redesign. I'm not going to put this into a segment, so I'll kind of engage your chat as I go through this because we are wrapping up a little bit. Hey, guys, it's never too late. Please hit that like, subscribe, notification bell. We are at 67 likes. Let's try to get up to about 80 likes. 13 of you guys, if you can hit that like button, that would mean the world to me. Pushes us further in the algorithm. Anyways, let's continue on. So you can see here, the Air Force is going to provide funeral honors to Ashley Babbitt. It's crazy to see that. Hold on one second. You can see that the Air Force is going to provide funeral honors and the full salute and everything else for Ashley Babbitt. Donald Trump is revoking former VP Kamala Harris' Secret Service protection. And this is uniquely different. Now, you could say it's because 6 months have come up, but hold on one second. Sorry about that. All right, let's wrap it up here. So now we have Donald Trump revoking Kamala Harris's Secret Service detail. Yes, it is true that after 6 months, they lose that. Yeah, everything's good, Winner. I appreciate you checking in. So revoking it usually gets revoked after 6 months. But the reality is that it was revealed that Joe Biden issued an order extending her Secret Service detail for up to a year after she left office. By the way, Joe Biden's administration, under Joe Biden's administration, we saw where a Democrat proposed a lifetime Secret Service detail for vice presidents. So again, this is just another vindictive move by Donald Trump. We already saw where he revoked numerous other Secret Service details, all despite them. And now you can see here Trump saying, I maintained a very good relationship with Putin. You saw that when he got off the plane. I got off my plane. There's a warmth there. There's a decent feeling. A dictator of a country who is bombing Ukraine and Kyiv. Several children are being injured because of Putin, not because of Zelensky. And this is where we will issue the last story here. The last story is that the Trump administration has ordered 7 warships and 4,500 personnel to waters off of Venezuela. This includes destroyers, a cruiser, a submarine, and an amphibious group with Marines. And again, to these MAGAs that are in chat or anybody who's watching this, I ask you, you voted for Trump because he was going to end the war on Ukraine in day one. He was going to bring down grocery prices on day one. No new wars, but we are positioning ourselves to be in a conflict. What happened to that? Rosen, welcome in on Twitch. Ask yourself these questions. What did you really vote for? Now, I know MAGA is a cult. And MAGA will never answer truly why they voted for this individual. But it is insane. And Jason hit it on the head. It's called 2028. I don't know if this is a plan because maybe Trump sees that if there's a war like in Ukraine that he's unable to, be voted out. I don't know. But right now, here's the problem I have with this. You go and start a war in Venezuela. What do you think that's going to do? It's going to destabilize the country. And they're going to move further north. Here's the other issue with this. Venezuela, I believe, is in the BRICS alliance. What that means is that Russia has already been shown to have provided weapons to Venezuela. This is not a conflict that would be in isolation. Russia, Kurikan, thank you for that $5 super chat. Means the world, buddy. Thank you so much for that appreciation. I really do appreciate it, man. Thumbs up to you. Really do appreciate it, man. Thank you. Means the world, especially because we're trying to get this channel to be a lot larger than it really is, right? It currently is. And I appreciate every single bit of effort and support that you guys have given, especially those who don't have to give. This is a channel that I actually take a lot of pride in. I know we've been doing a lot of it. I just want to take a second here as we're talking about this. I'll wrap the story up and then I'll give my thanks and appreciation. So, the problem we have with this is that you're going to have Russia be brought into the middle of all of this. And that's kind of a concern. Okay. It's not just going to be isolated to Venezuela. You're going to have Russia involved. By the way, we're already seeing this play out in Russia and Ukraine. Okay. North Korea is assisting Russia with their troops. We're seeing allegedly India give aid to Ukraine, give aid to Russia. This is not going to be an isolated incident. I don't know what the long game plan is here. I don't know if this is Trump trying to get oil from Venezuela. I don't know. But it's deeply concerning. Mike said nobody expected it was going to be done on day one. Nobody was brain. You're clearly wrong. Donald Trump everywhere said it was going to be done on day one. And again, nowhere are we indicating that prices are going to go down. Inflation is still going up. Jason Misty said, Johnny Sullivan filmed the Babbitt murder. Again, nobody has been convicted of it. And again, given what she had done, and if you knew the facts of the case, It's also rich to me, by the way, guys. This whole Ashley Babbitt thing is very rich to me because what they'll do is they'll sit there saying in one breath, they'll say, well, you know, when those cases of law enforcement officers comes up, right? And they sit there and there's a question of whether or not they were justified in their use of force. Republicans tend to go, well, you know, he reached in his pocket. But when it comes to Ashley Babbitt, they go, well, no. Listen, she didn't have anything on her, guys. And they go right back to taking the Democratic side. Just another glaring, obvious point that they are just absolute hypocrites. Jason Missy said he shot an unarmed person. Definitely excessive force. Great. So then I guess you support George. You support the police officer being charged for George Floyd, right? By that same logic, but they'll never admit to that. But yeah, so I wanted to mention this as well to Surican or Kurikan. Thank you so much for that. I want you guys to know the future of this channel and where we want this channel to go. I'll take this moment to tell you guys this. Once I'm able to do this full time, my goal is to be able to do canvassing events. I want to be able to go out to certain locations. I want to be able to interview. Maybe there's a rally or something, do some rally interviews. I'd love to be able to attend certain local events that we have here in Texas, especially Austin. I think there's a lot of great events there. We could do some live streams, things like that. But that is only possible by me being able to do this full time. So that is the goal of our stream right now. The short goal is, but yeah, I want to be able to do some of these things. Is it frozen? Okay, we're having some lags. That's weird. I don't know what's going on. Okay, should be good. I think we're good. But anyways, that's the future goal of the stream. And with your support. Okay, cool. I just want to make sure. Okay, we're going back. Okay, cool. Appreciate it. But anyways, those are some of the future goals of the stream. Our first immediate goal is to get to doing this full time. Once we do that, we can then move into doing canvassing events. We can go to certain, key tight races and things like that. That's where this stream is heading. I don't know if that'll be in 6 months, 2 months, a year. I don't know. But that I just want to make it clear what we're doing. This is a unified movement. It's not about me. It's about you guys in chat. I want to be able to help show you guys some of the facts that are going on in this stream. Okay. I'm trying to bring some of the news stories to you. We're working on some of the videos. One of the things I'm doing, I'm trying to get used to doing is doing pre-recorded videos. So that's kind of something we're kind of tweaking as well. But anyways, guys, look, we're at the tail end of the stream. Thank you, Dan Fries. Yes, hit the like and subscribe button, y'all. That's how we get things done. That's how we get things accomplished. Again, I appreciate every single one of you guys. And I hope you have a great Labor Day weekend. I will still try to post a video on Monday, even though it is Labor Day. Okay. But y'all have a great weekend, guys. Enjoy it. Hopefully it's not too costly for you guys for the burgers or anything you decide to grill. But nonetheless, thank you, Dan. Great show. Thank you. All right, guys. Take care. Have a